You are live. Welcome to the Shoy Show. It is May 28th, 2026. We only get one of these. One of what? One of these days. So make it count. Now, you may not think this has anything to do with, the World Cup, our first topic, but it does, okay? They're living their lives, so should you. All right, that's a little bit of a stretch. All right, let's jump into our first topic. World Cup tickets, New York, New Jersey, subpoena FIFA. Those are the key words. That's what you search. New York and New Jersey have subpoenaed FIFA over ticketing practices for the 2026 World Cup. Sounds like something's awry. Sound like something fishy. Little fish, fish, fish. The investigation is about the matches at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. MetLife is hosting 8 World Cup matches, including the final, on July 19th, 2026. Get your tickets for $10,000. $10,000. 10 grand, $10,000? This isn't about soccer anymore. This is a consumer story. Now, let's get to the details, because the World Cup is coming into our backyard. We are in New York here. And the question is whether regular fans are being priced out before the tournament even begins. However, there may have been some deceptive practices. The investigation was announced by New York Attorney General Letitia James and New York Acting Attorney General Jennifer Davenport. They are looking into ticket prices, seating categories, seat locations, ticket release practices, and whether fans understood what they were buying. Now, the last part matters, because when someone buys a World Cup ticket, what exactly are they buying? Are they buying a specific seat? Are they buying a general category? Categories are different sections. Are they buying proximity to the field? Or are they buying a promise that the category means something consistent? That's where the confusion starts. FIFA reportedly described ticket categories in a way that led fans to believe the category would be based mainly on distance from the field. So category 1 should mean the closest and best seats. Category 2 should mean the next level. Categories 3 and 4 should move further away. I've been to the World Cup. They've used this same system prior. That is how a normal person hears it. If I'm in category 1, I'm close. If I'm in category 4, I'm in the nosebleeds. But when tickets went on sale, the categories did not appear that simple. Some category 1 tickets included seats not only in the lower bowl, but also in the second level sideline areas. That means they expanded category 1. Some category 2 tickets included upper level sideline seats. Categories 3 and 4 were smaller blocks in higher parts of the stadium. Come on, guys. We just want to watch soccer, okay? And if you charge for premium seating and the person expects to sit up close on the field, you don't give them necessarily an assigned seat, only to find out that they purchased an exorbitant ticket price to sit in the nosebleeds. That's kind of what's happening here. At the very least, you can call this buyer's remorse. Because then FIFA added a new premium zone near the field in April. So if someone bought a top category ticket before FIFA created a new premium zone, did that buyer end up further from the field than they expected? That's the question here. If the best rows become a separate premium product after earlier sales, what happened to the people who thought they actually had bought the best category? That's not some minor detail. No. That's the difference between paying for one thing and getting something else. And these tickets are in the thousands of dollars. This is also the first World Cup where FIFA is using dynamic pricing. Thank you, FIFA. As if these tickets don't cost enough. Dynamic meaning prices can move based on demand, kind of like airlines. If demand spikes, prices rise. If inventory appears limited, people buy faster, people fear missing out, the system benefits from urgency. Is FIFA simply responding to demand, or is the ticket release strategy helping create that demand? It's certainly a little bit of both. They do the same thing with concert tickets. New Jersey officials raised the issue of possible fake scarcity. That means fans may have been shown limited inventory or limited releases in a way that made the market feel tighter than it actually was. If a ticket is genuinely scarce, that is one thing. If scarcity is being created through a release strategy, that becomes a consumer protection issue. The tournament itself is massive. The 2026 World Cup starts on June 11, 2026. Tickets, of course, are still available resale. And there's no shortage of demand here. We have the entire world flocking to the United States just to see it. MetLife gets 8 matches, including the final. The advertised lowest ticket price was around $60, but reports, of course, say averages have since been in the thousands since sales opened. FIFA later made a limited batch of $60 supporter entry tier tickets available. That $60 tier reportedly represented only about 1.6% of available tickets. So, a $60 advertised floor, average ticket price above $1,000, only about 1.6% in the $60 supporter tier. That is the whole pricing contradiction. The public hears tickets start at $60, then the actual market feels like $1,000 and up, and it is. So a normal fan asks, where are the $60 tickets? They don't exist. They never exist. We have a lottery here in New York City. Let's see how many people actually win those tickets. I think it's only like 1,000 tickets. How many people actually had a real shot at these? Were they symbolic? Were they meaningful? Then you look at transportation. Another really big issue here. As if the costs aren't exorbitant already. New Jersey Transit originally announced a round-trip train ticket from New York Penn Station to MetLife would cost $150. The normal fare is $13. $13 on a regular day, $150 to go to the World Cup. The fare was later lowered to $105 after consumers pushed back. Buses from New York City to the stadium are expected to cost around $80. So the fan is not only paying for the match, they may be paying hundreds or thousands for the ticket, plus fees, plus transportation, plus food, plus everything around the event. MetLife holds around 82,000 people. Of course, New York City offering a $50 ticket lottery for city residents, totaling 1,000 tickets. Was that a political stunt? It's tiny compared with the total demand. But that number tells you how sensitive this has become. A global event is landing in New York and New Jersey, but access is limited to people who can pay luxury event prices. Aren't you sick of this? I am. I'm from here, man. I am from here, and it's not lost on me. I've been to London, been to Paris, been to Tokyo. I've been to, major cities, Los Angeles, and I know how expensive it can get. But here's your reality check. The world is expensive. So, am I just supposed to sit here and take it? No, absolutely not. I shouldn't take it. I should ask questions. Why are things so expensive? If our Federal Reserve Bank is supposed to peg inflation, control inflation at 3% every year, why is it that I actually feel my wallet is light? What do you think it takes to feed a family of 4 these days? In New York City, at least $1,500 a month. It's not about complaining. It's about raising awareness on the issue so that we can actually solve the problem. The alternative is me keeping my mouth shut, or us collectively keeping our mouths shut, remaining docile, and letting the politicians and the rich win, or more importantly, take advantage of the system. The questions are practical here. When a fan buys Category 1, what does Category 1 actually guarantee? How many tickets were released at each price? How many were held back? How many went to sponsors, hospitality packages? How many went for public sale? How many were available at $60, $500, $1,000? Why did seat categories change? Why were premium zones added later? So let's just understand what happened here. You have a seat map. They add a premium zone after tickets are sold. That's kind of like the person coming in the restaurant. You have a great view. Maybe you're by the stage, and someone gets seated in front of you, although the place is sold out. They're at full capacity. Why? Because they're VIP, or they have the money, right? Did buyers receive clear notice here? No. Did fans understand that prices could move dynamically? Absolutely not. We just pay whatever we see on screen. The practices are happening behind closed doors. They can manipulate it. They can change. They can say whatever they want. We're over here biting the bullet. Let's call it what it is. It's unacceptable. These are unfair trading practices, and they put these types of events out of reach for the regular consumer. Now, of course, a subpoena is not a conviction. It is a demand for records. And we should be happy that the New York Attorney General is pursuing this. New York and New Jersey are asking FIFA to produce information about how these prices were set, how categories were defined, how tickets were released, and whether consumers were misled. This is bigger than soccer because it happens with almost every type of event nowadays. This is what happens when every major event becomes financialized. Concerts already went this way. Playoff tickets went this way. When are you going to get frustrated enough at a topic like this? And I'm not trying to rile anyone up, but it will hit home eventually. And when it does hit your wallet, then I think you would be pretty disturbed by it. For example, you actually might want to take a plane somewhere and you might see that the prices are outlandish. What will you do then? Are you going to just throw up your arms and say, either I'm not going to take the trip, or I'm going to pay this insane price and maybe cut back on my expenses on the trip? Either way, you'll make a decision. However, I'm saying that we have to look back at our leaders, at our politicians. Who organized this event? We should be pursuing this. We should answer these questions. Because this goes for all of these markets in parallel. Are fans participating in a transparent market, or is the market rigged through dynamic pricing, limited releases, moving seat categories, and confusing inventory? Do we even know what we are buying? I mean, this is a mess, a colossal mess with FIFA. And it's not the first time they've been under the spotlight like this. The tournament is supposed to be the world's game. If the richest country in the world, our own fans in the richest country, the host country, can't even afford the tickets, you think people can fly from other countries into ours and afford these types of tickets? This is a global issue. So, if the World Cup comes to your region, but the most regular fans cannot afford to attend, whose World Cup is it? All right, next topic. And I'm loving this. And I had to create this damn map, and it took me a while. Okay, so don't give me the credit. Give the credit to ChatGPT and all the large language models. However, Alabama redistricting is at the forefront. The map was blocked again. It was also blocked in 2023. And now Alabama is appealing. The latest development is that a federal 3-judge court blocked Alabama from using its Republican-drawn congressional map for the 2026 midterms. That map would have reduced the number of black majority or near black majority districts from 2 back down to 1. Alabama is now appealing to the U.S. Supreme Court. You, the viewer, the smart, the intelligent. I do not think anyone around me is stupid. I don't think if you didn't go to college, that you don't know anything. No, we are filled with experience from the youngest of the young, from the infants to the eldest. I am asking you right now, what is wrong with this map? Pen drop. Because, I have a whole bunch of, facts and items to get through here. What is wrong with this map? I see a whole bunch of things wrong with this map. This is Alabama's congressional redistricting. It's gerrymandering. It's all of those things that we hear, people trying to take advantage, not people, but our leaders trying to take advantage of their constituents. I'm sorry, do you care about all of Alabama, or do you care about your political career? Because if you make this map more red, it's good for Republicans. If you make this map more blue, it's good for Democrats. First of all, of all things, I think the glaring problem here is that we only have 2 parties. Broken system. We can better it. We can better a lot of things in this country. We should not stop striving to do so. What is wrong with this map? It's not that there's a ton of Republicans. And if you look closely here, like Where's Waldo? By the way, I dressed as Where's Waldo for Halloween one year. And now I have to put Where's Waldo up on screen for just a second. I don't want to go into too many segues, but it's the Shoy show, so whatever. If you guys don't remember Where's Waldo, it was a game. This is Where's Waldo. I dressed up as him for Halloween one year, and they would give you a map, and you would have to find Waldo. And I'm not about to find Waldo over here, in this map over here, but that's him right there. And Where's Waldo's great. Okay, back to the topic. I want to stay on this. If you look closely at this map, they're not only taking away one predominantly black voting district, which is huge. Look at the map. They're also changing other districts. If you look closely, right? You can see that 5 is kind of stepping a little bit into 4. You can see that 1 is kind of drifting downward. Now, why would they do this? Come on, y'all. I'm not patronizing you. It's these leaders, right? It's just, it's ridiculous. Why would you want to do something like this? This is because it's kind of like on the basketball court, right? You want all the best players. This is kind of what they're doing. They are removing any type of opposition. Is that how you want to win elections? Is that how you want to win elections? I don't want to win an election like that. If I ever ran for senator or mayor or whatever, what about you? If you were ever a leader, if you ever owned a company, ran a company, or even on your own respective teams, respectively, relatively to your position, to your life, don't you care about your entire team? Doesn't the CEO, or shouldn't the CEO care about everyone in the company? Not who's in his immediate sphere? What is the sphere of influence here? I mean, you think about this up and down the line, a priest should care about his or her entire congregation. I think priests can only be men. I'm not even sure. A principal in a school should care about all of their students. A president of the United States should care about all Americans. These are the facts that children can identify. And you know why I like speaking like a child? Because I remind you, they are the innocent. And they're right most of the time. Because their minds haven't been corrupted. This is black and white to me. They want no opposition. They want no challengers. That's what this map tells me. What are you afraid of? Do you think your policies are that bad? Is it just about salvaging or saving or perpetuating your political career? And who's behind all of this? It's President Trump. He's leading the way. So now we're in the Supreme Court. And the current posture is the federal court says no. Alabama says, Supreme Court, let us use it. So the fight's not over. Alabama has 7 congressional districts that you see up here. Black residents make up about 27% of the state. 1 district out of 7 is about 14%. 2 districts out of 7 is about 29%. That math is the center of the case. If Black Alabamians are more than 1/4 of the state, should they have a real chance to elect candidates of their choice in 1 district or 2? Here's the history. After the 2020 census, Alabama drew a congressional map with only 1 majority Black district. Black voters and civil rights groups sued in 2021. They argued that the map diluted Black voting power under Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. This takes us to 2023. The U.S. Supreme Court ruled against Alabama in Allen versus Milligan. The court allowed a lower court ruling to stand that said Alabama likely violated the Voting Rights Act by packing Black voters into 1 district and weakening their influence elsewhere. After that ruling, Alabama's legislator drew another map. But that replacement map still did not create 2 Black opportunity districts. A federal court rejected that one too. The court then put in place a remedial map with 2 Black majority or near Black majority districts. That map was used in 2024. Under that court-approved map, Democrat Shoy figures won one of the new districts. That gave Alabama 2 Black members of Congress, Shoy Figures and Terry Sewell. Then the legal landscape shifted again in 2026 after the Supreme Court's more recent ruling in Louisiana versus Kalis. Alabama tried to revive its early Republican-friendly map, so they are not going away. They are fighting this tooth and nail because they know what is at stake. That, of course, is the map that the federal court just blocked again. And on May 26, 2026, which is where we are today, the 3-judge panel said Alabama could not use that map for 2026 because it was tainted by intentional race-based discrimination. The ruling blocked Alabama from switching maps for the upcoming elections. However, now they are back at the Supreme Court. That's how important this is.
To make sure that we all understand that Montgomery is not alone, that you all are not alone. And for all of those watching today, when they ask, what do we do in this moment? I feel helpless. What action can I take? It is time for the North to pull up to the South. It is time for New York to pull up to Alabama. It is time for all of us to come to Georgia, to Louisiana, to Tennessee, to Mississippi, and let them know exactly what they have on court with this injustice.
All right, that's AOC. She's one of our representatives here in New York. And she was speaking in Montgomery, Alabama. What I want to call out here is, do you see what's in front of her? That is bulletproof glass. Damn. I mean, of course, after all of the attempted assassinations on Trump, including Charlie Kirk, I mean, that is just damn. That's what it takes to be a politician in this country. That says a lot about our American system, society, people. Sheesh. So the state is arguing that the court-approved map is itself an unconstitutional racial gerrymander. The plaintiffs are arguing that Alabama is trying again to dilute black voting power. That is the legal collision. That is the legal collision. And again, I ask the voter. Come on, y'all. I ask the American. What do you think is happening here? Does this not look like they are trying to silence a minority, a majority, potentially? There is an agenda here. It is not hidden at all. Is that how you win? I ask you, is this how you want to win an election? You might as well kill off your opposition. That's the idea here, right? We don't even want them to vote. That's why we don't want mail-in ballots. That's why we're undermining whether the systems that we use in place, the digital systems, the computers, are rigged. All of this is to undermine the system so that we keep away voters. Republicans want a lower participative rate. Republicans want a lower participation rate so long as it is any other party voting. And that tells me a few things about Republicans. It tells me that they probably think that they can't win. They want to strengthen their footing in the country. It's extremely hard to redistrict these maps. But they know what's at stake here.
A panel of 3 U.S. judges blocked Alabama from using an electoral map that would eliminate one of the state's 2 majority black U.S. House districts. The ruling from the judges, which included 2 appointed by President Donald Trump, is a setback for Republican efforts to retain control of the chamber in November's midterm elections. Black voters typically support Democratic candidates, and Trump's Republicans are defending a narrow House majority. The ruling on Tuesday follows a Supreme Court decision last month dealing with electoral maps that severely weakened the Voting Rights Act, a 1965 law intended to prevent discrimination in voting. Joseph Axe is a national affairs correspondent for Reuters.
And I want to keep this map up on screen because it tells you everything that you need to know. Why on earth would they do something like this? They are trying to weaken the other side. And let's not act like Democrats don't do this either. But this is egregious. This usurps the other districts. This doesn't give them a fair shot. It silences the black voice in Alabama. And that is the agenda, the very real agenda. One side is saying that the Voting Rights Act protects black voters from having their power diluted. The other side is saying that courts cannot force states to draw districts around race. Both arguments are now sitting in front of the Supreme Court. And who is the Supreme Court made up of? A Republican majority. The election calendar, of course, makes this urgent. Alabama has special primaries scheduled for August 11th, 2026. That means the courts do not have unlimited time here. We need a ruling and the state needs to know which map it will be using before ballots, candidates, campaigns, and voters are locked in. Could you imagine the calamity that would occur if we don't have a Supreme Court ruling in time? It can happen. We have seen votes being thrown out. Which to me is actually one of the more egregious and careless actions that our government can take. But I should remind the audience that we're still challenging who won the 2020 presidential election. So the clean timeline is this. The 2020 census was done. Alabama redraws its congressional map. 2021, Black voters and civil rights groups sue. 2023, the Supreme Court rules against Alabama in Allen versus Milligan. 2024, Alabama uses a court-approved map with 2 Black opportunity districts. That's the one that you see up here on the left. Now, in May 2026, Alabama tries to revive a Republican-friendly map. Federal courts block it on May 26th. On May 27th, Alabama asked the Supreme Court to let it use the map anyway. And of course, we have special primaries on August 11th. So the question for the audience is this. If a state is 27% Black, is 1 congressional district enough? If 2 districts create fairer representation, is that legitimate protection under the Voting Rights Act? It all comes down to Supreme Court interpretation. Or does the use of race in map making itself make it unconstitutional? That's why this case matters. It is about Alabama. It is about the Black vote. It is about the Voting Rights Act. And of course, it's left with one entity and one entity only, the U.S. Supreme Court. This is also about control of the House. It's also about control of Congress. So right now, this is in flux. Federal courts blocked Alabama's map. Alabama is appealing. And unless the Supreme Court intervenes, Alabama stays with the court-approved map that has 2 Black opportunity districts. It looks fair to me. The right looks appalling. The right looks like someone is trying to take advantage of the situation. The right looks like they are not trying to give anyone a fair shot. This should be enough to tell the story. All right, next topic. And this is one of my favorite ones, and we're really going to get into it. So buckle up. Imagine, I mean, I know it's like a proverbial seatbelt, but like, imagine you had like a seatbelt on your chair. And by the way, who uses the seatbelt in the back seat? Again, I don't want to go so tangential, but one time I was in a car and my friend made me use my seatbelt in the back seat. Actually, he wouldn't drive. I was like, dude, I'm not putting on my seatbelt. Not in the back seat. Like, I can understand in the passenger seat. And he's like, bro, I'm not going to drive. And like, he's the driver, right? So I was really shocked, and I didn't really drive with him too many times in my life. But like, man, I was really shocked. Like, he was adamant about it. Like, he was not going to drive the car. So unless I wanted us to move, I had to put my seatbelt on. I was just pretty shocked. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just, it was a little weird at the time. I was like, this is kind of weird, Where is it? Anyway, what happens when school strips curiosity from the mind? Think about that question because it is a powerful one. What happens when school strips curiosity from the mind? John Taylor Gatto, his essay called Against School, is not really an argument against education. It is an argument against compulsory institutional schooling. That distinction changes the conversation, and please keep it at the epicenter of this topic. Education is learning, school is a system. That is the dichotomy. Learning can happen through reading, building, working, failing. School takes that natural hunger and puts it inside of a schedule. Now, Gatto knew the system from the inside. He taught in New York City schools for nearly 30 years. He was named New York City Teacher of the Year. He was also named New York State Teacher of the Year. This man has got credentials. His essay appeared in Harper's Magazine in September 2003 under the subtitle, How Public Education Cripples Our Kids and Why. I love this topic so much. It is so good. And the essay is fantastic. I highly recommend you read it because the essay begins with boredom. Now, Madame de Staël, the famous French author, she famously said, in life, one must choose between boredom and suffering. I mean, the first time I heard that quote, I was like, bravo. I was like, that's, I was like, I didn't even know what to think. It just screwed up my mind. But again, the essay begins with boredom. Not laziness, not stupidity, but boredom. Gatto said he became an expert in boredom after decades of school teaching. Students told him the work felt pointless, repetitive, disconnected from real life, and beneath what they were capable of doing. Let's pause it right there. Does that sound familiar? Does that resonate with you? Oh, it's speaking volumes in my mind. Students told him, his students, 10 years old, 13 years old, 5 years old, students told him the work felt pointless. What am I doing this for? Repetitive. We're doing the same thing over and over again. Disconnected from real life. What value am I getting from this? I remember one time I asked one of my teachers, I said, well, why do I have to know my times tables? 6 times 6 is 36. You know what she tells me? And my teachers liked me, she was just making a joke. She's like, so that when you wait tables one day, you can multiply for how many napkins you have to set. Now, at the time, I'm a little kid. I'm like, I can be a waiter? And I was a waiter, actually. I was a waiter for, half a year, something like that. And the most important point here is that the kids were telling him, the students were telling him, they are not kids. They were students. They were enrolled. Yes, kids, whatever you want to call them. However, we got to worry about that classification there because kid has essentially a negative connotation. It kind of means, hey, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're saying. Does a kid not know what they're talking about? What does the kid not have that the adult has? Oh, man. What does the adult have that the kid doesn't have? I think I asked that in contrast. Can you imagine what a kid's life is like today? Come on. Not even close. You can't even come close. And we have wild imaginations. As far as we can possibly conjure up, the brain is a miraculous place. You can't imagine what a child's life is like. And a child can't imagine what being a grown-up is like. They can imagine. It doesn't go so far. Now, the adult was once a child. The child will become an adult. The adult knows what it was like to be a child. We also have to take into account that not all of us have the best memory, right? It's rather hard to remember what happened when you were a child. But the student saying that what they're doing actively in school, what they are doing on a daily basis, is beneath what they are capable of doing. What do we say to that? As I throw my pen up in the air like an orchestrator. What do we say? We say, deal with it. That's what we tell our kids, right? Deal with it. This is what you have to do. You have to go through the motions. You have to pay your dues. So we not only silence them, we're doing a lot of things when we say that. When we treat our children in that manner, these are not throwaway statements. Son, daughter, this is how it is. That's life. This is a rat race. One of my teachers, and I loved him very much, I was in the first grade, he said, life's a bitch. Never grow up. Life's a bitch. All of that matters because it feeds into our foundation. It shapes us. Are we supposed to dismiss children when they say, this is beneath me? Now, of course, you want some more humility in your children, of course, right? We don't want, nothing should be beneath you, right? From the richest to the poorest, from the oldest to the youngest, nothing should be beneath you. But if students are pointing out the lack of efficacy and challenge in our school system, who's listening to them? I would bet no one is listening to them. I would bet that the only people that could potentially listen to them would be the parents. My daughter and my son come home. I'm not being challenged at school. Well, I'll give you a challenge. You're going to read some books, and we're going to travel, and we're going to create things and fix things and work in the physical realm. And we're going to learn on our own to supplement your education. But what about the parents that don't have the time, don't have the resources to feed their children's curiosity? Guess what happens, y'all? The curiosity dies. The dreams die. And then we wake up one day, and where do we find ourselves? The freaking Matrix. This isn't a conspiracy theory. And what happens in the Matrix? I don't know. We get depressed. We question life. We go in circles. We try to figure things out. Everybody has the question at the top of mind. What is my purpose in life? Why am I here? What happens when I die? What should I be doing with my time? Am I wasting it away? The kids are telling you that. The kids, the children of our society, our future, the ones that are going to lead the way. It's their world, baby. It doesn't mean that we're contributing any less as adults. But we have a twofold responsibility, not only to live our lives, but to also pave the way for them. They only have one objective and one objective only. And that is to imagine and to be curious. So if children are saying, hey, this is pointless. Like, what the hell am I doing? They are fundamentally challenging our curriculums. What are we doing about that? You know, it's a sad question, right? I think what I take away from like the essence of asking that question is it's really sad, because this goes for the teachers in the schools, which are also handcuffed, right? They're prisoners to the system, they're prisoners to the structure. They don't have full autonomy. They have to teach certain books, they have to abide by certain guidelines. Else, guess what? They get fired. Who is challenging? Who is confronting the issues that we see in our curriculum? We have this No Child Left Behind Act that is pervasive in our school systems. We are asking pointed questions here that are derived from our children. And guess what? We were all children one day, weren't we? So we should know what this feels like. Am I supposed to reject these children? Am I supposed to reject my child? My child that's crying out, Mom, Dad, I hate this. I hate it. I know, son, it'll get better. Just keep learning. Just keep doing. But Mom, Dad, like it's beneath me. I can't. And guys, I'm going to open up to you. And I do, of course, on the show. I felt like this. I've been telling the bestest of my friends, my confidants, my family, that for my entire life, I had so many ideas and so many dreams, and they were stifled because of this system which prepares me to join a workforce, enter a workforce, so that I can create money per capita. Yes? It's all about production. That is how my life has been defined through 36 years of age. How much money do you have? What house do you live in? What do you do for work? Is that my identity? I guess that's what it is, right? Who are you? When someone asks you that, who are you? How do you answer the question? Well, my name is X. My birthday is this day. I'm this age. I live here. I like doing XYZ. That sounds extremely limited to describe what a human being is living for and who they are, isn't it? How the hell can you describe a single person in 5 sentences, much less maybe 5 words? People write memoirs about their life. I suggest that everyone does. We boil down our identities to mush, to nothing. Is that what your life is worth? What would a dead person say about your life today? The fact that you're alive and they're dead. What would they say? They would say, wow, they have life, right? Because everything's perspective, everything's relative, right? The dead person wants to be alive. The poor person wants to be rich. The child is screaming out for a burgeoning identity. They are becoming someone. They are becoming something. And what do? We squander it. We eliminate it with our actions, our words, the subtleties, of course. So Gatto begins the essay with boredom. He becomes an expert in boredom after decades of schooling. Students tell him that the work feels pointless. It feels disconnected from real life. Now, naturally, you might ask, well, aren't kids normally bored? Or are we putting them in environments that produce the boredom? A child can spend hours drawing, building, playing a game, learning a song, memorizing sports stats, or chasing some random question about space. Children know how not to be bored. So what happens when we take that mind and place it inside of a system where almost every hour is controlled? A bell tells a child when to stop. A schedule decides when the subject changes. A permission system controls movement. A grading system turns curiosity into evaluation. That's the cage. On top of it all, a classroom structure tells the child that is thinking that it has to fit the block. Do you see what we're doing here? The child's mind is filled with ideas and curiosity, filled with aspirations. We are saying, go inside that room, stay in there until the bell rings, learn what you have to. You are subjugated to your teacher. You listen to their commands. And then you come home, you do your homework, you go to sleep, and you repeat it all the next day. There is a systemic problem here. I mean, could you think for 1 second if you actually allowed the child to flourish? We are sowing seeds here, are we not? The children are not only the fruits of our labor, but they're the fruits of the world. Again, they are the future. What happens if you go into your garden and you start picking your fruits and vegetables before they ripen? Schools say dream big. At the same time, they say sit still. Schools say be curious. Then they say stop when the bell rings. Schools say think critically. Then it asks whether the answer matches the rubric. Our system says it prepares children for life, but much of school life is hallways, desks, permission slips, schedules, categories, grades, and age groups. That does not mean that teachers are the enemy. I have good friends, including one of my sisters, that is a teacher. A teacher can be brilliant and still work inside the structure that fragments attention. A teacher can care deeply and still be forced to teach toward a test. Most importantly, a teacher can see that child's gift and still have to pace through a calendar, administrative pressures, and a classroom full of students moving at different speeds. So naturally, you might ask, what does the structure train? It trains punctuality, compliance, waiting, permission seeking. It trains the children to stop one thought because an authority figure says the time is over. Now, those habits may be useful for institutions. The question is whether they are the same as education. A normal American school year is commonly around 180 days, half the year, 10 months, though state requirements vary, of course. Multiply that across 12 or 13 years, that is thousands of days during the most flexible period of a person's life. So the question is not only what facts are being taught. The deeper question is what habits are being installed. Because a child will forget the worksheet but keep the obedience. They will forget the textbook chapter but keep the fear, our most primitive emotion, of being wrong. A child will forget the lesson. But remember that learning is something authorities assign. So school turns learning from an internal drive into an external requirement. A young child asks questions because the world is strange, because they don't know and they want to know. A student asks, is this going to be on the test? That's the difference. The child is filled with wanting to know the answer. The structure forces the student to pass the test. What would you rather have more of in society? The dreamers, the inventors, the leaders, the pioneers? Aren't these the people that we admire? The ones that break away the chains? The ones that break away from the matrix? But if you do this, we punish you. Because we don't want you to run, and we don't want you to run fast. We want you to conform. Conformity is the structure. Conformity is the habit that we are creating. Once the grade becomes the point, curiosity becomes secondary. It disappears. The child is no longer chasing knowledge. The child is managing evaluation. The numbers make the question sharper. Federal education data shows public school spending at thousands of dollars per pupil every year. Average public school spending is $18,614 per pupil. However, our reading assessments found that only 31% of fourth graders performed at or above proficient in reading. Now, NAEP. Now, this measure is not the same as an ordinary grade level proficiency, but it is still a national benchmark for strong academic performance. We've long criticized our national curriculum and school systems. So after enormous spending and more than a decade of compulsory schooling, what is the system producing? Independent readers, independent thinkers, or people who know how to move through institutions? Those are different outcomes. This is where Gatto's historical argument comes in. He argued that modern mass schooling was shaped by systems designed to produce orderly, manageable populations, not just educated minds. The Prussian model is often discussed here because it emphasized state-directed schooling, standardization, hierarchy, obedience, and social control. Industrial society needed people who could arrive on time, follow directions, move through bureaucracies, tolerate repetition, respect hierarchy, and accept schedules created by someone else. That does not mean no learning happened. It means the system had more than one purpose. Education was one purpose, diversity in that. diversity at that. Workforce preparation was another. Social order was another. So when someone says school is necessary, the next question is, necessary for what? Literacy, you can learn that on your own. Socialization, you can be a part of your community without going to school. I would actually argue that that is the most important aspect of school. It is community. It is meeting with people. Or is it necessary for state control? Those are not identical answers. Real learning often feels alive. That's what our children feel. That's what they're telling us, right? They're telling us that they feel disconnected. And we do nothing to address their concerns. Why? Is it because kids don't know anything? And we know better because we're adults? What I find perplexing here is you're extremely curious as a child. And then you get older, you get into the workforce, you live your life, you make your mistakes. If you live long enough, you figure everything out, you mature, you kind of, flatline, you plateau. I'm not talking about complacency here, but you figure things out. At least that's kind of where I am at 36 years old. Things slow down. Your body starts changing, your mind starts changing. You probably become a little bit more patient. But at some point, you do ask yourself, is this the right way of doing things? It's a legitimate question. If asking yourself, what does your purpose mean? Why are you here? Why are you living? Then why isn't that a fair question to ask? Is it too rebellious? Seriously, is it too rebellious? Guess who would say it's too rebellious? The government. Shut your mouth and do your damn job. Pay your damn taxes and die as you will anyone else. That's what I think the government, whether they want that or they don't care, either way, it's still on the same side. They don't care. They don't want opposition. Yeah? They want you to be controlled. That's why this is the Matrix. Again, let me repeat this statement. Real learning often feels alive. You're probably in your best state of mind when you're doing something you enjoy doing, like one of your hobbies. Reading, singing, dancing, playing an instrument. How much of that do you get in your life? Oh, okay, so after my job, then I'll come home and I'll take up my hobby. I'm asking, is that the right way of doing things? Or are we supposed to break away from these chains? We've been institutionalized since we were kids. Would you agree? And then what's, again, so confounding is the fact that when we become adults and we hit that plateau, we get to that more patient state in our lives. And of course, we may be questioning everything. We start thinking, damn, I'm kind of fucked up a little, right? I kind of got some problems up here. Maybe I start taking drugs. Maybe I have bouts of depression. But then what do? You might go to therapy. You might start hanging out with friends more. You're going to try to alleviate the pain, right? The pain of the thoughts, of the melancholy, the misery. And one of the processes you might find yourself going through is unraveling, unwinding everything you learned as a child. Everything you learned from a young age, you start saying, whoa. I think I was at my best when I was a child. when I was innocent, when I didn't see color, when I didn't see divide, when all I thought about was that the world was some great big place and people were beautiful and everything was nice and sweet. It was like Willy Wonka's chocolate factory. Now where I am in my life is I'm jaded. I go to work, I come home, I eat, I watch some TV, and I go to sleep. I'm not going to ask, is that a life worth living? To each his own. We are a byproduct of our society and the systems that control what we do, where we go, how we act, and how we conform. And when you step outside of that boundary, you are penalized for it. Should you be unemployed, you will live a much tougher life. You will be outcast in society. Should you question your gender, you will be thrown to the wolves. You will be rejected. Should you question your political system, you will be scapegoated. Your reputation may be ruined. You may be targeted by our institutions. A kid who loves music can practice for hours. Let them do that. Maybe in the substitution for school. A teenager obsessed with editing can learn software faster than a class could teach it. Would you agree? A future mechanic is going to learn more from practicing on an engine. They shouldn't be in a class. Let them go out and discover. We praise the entrepreneurs that get up and sell sneakers or cut hair, flip items, make videos. Where's the line that we draw? You have to be an adult to do those things? Children show, the youth show entrepreneurial spirit. Why are we the ones that make that vanish? I have a good friend. Unfortunately, he's younger. He absolutely loves drawing. His family doesn't support it. They think it's a waste of time. They think that he should continue to go to school, and his art is amazing. It's amazing. It is fantastic. The things that he draws up, he conjures up, he imagines, and he puts on paper with the limited resources and tools that he has. He doesn't have oil pastels or any of that. This kid's amazing. And I, at times, think that it'll die out because no one around him is supporting him. That kind of learning is messy. It does not always fit the curriculum. It does not always arrive at the right age. It does not always produce a clean grade. But obsession is often the beginning of mastery. School has limited patience for obsession unless the obsession fits the assignment. That is the problem. A child who cannot sit still may not be broken. A child who hates worksheets may not hate learning. A young person who challenges the lesson may not be disrespectful. They may be asking for reality. That is why the boredom question matters. What if boredom is not a personal failure inside of the child? What if boredom is evidence that the structure is starving the mind? Now add in modern technology. Children today are trapped between two attention systems. School fragments attention through bells, subjects, grades, and schedules. Social media fragments attention through feeds, notifications, likes, short videos, and algorithmic stimulation. One system demands compliance, the other demands reaction. Neither one is built primarily around deep curiosity. Thank you for watching. We'll end it there.